Hey everybody, like I said, there were so many questions, so let's jump into the next 4. And that first question is, this month is hard. Winter is fast coming and I'm terrified of the cold. It's bad for chronic pain and I feel it very much. Where I'm at health-wise is that tight spot. I'm getting to the point where I'm supposed to be, and my mother would disagree, but my GP is happier. I still feel sore, tired, and achy, and this will sound silly, but I've not gained the health through eating joyful things. I've just moved less and eaten more of what I usually do, very dull and not entirely deliberate. So now I'm worried if I really gave it my all and fired up in the pizza, cram, the cake, I'm gonna explode. I'll have to exercise and be like those people who are balanced, talk about chia seeds and diets, wear lycra and run with prams even if they don't have kids. Ugh. I think it partly comes down to still missing my friend that died by suicide so much, not feeling safe in my work and home life, and so I've made this restriction into my home. It's such a clinched safety net. So how can I reframe this thinking? I don't want food to be medicine or a job, I just want it to be. I want control, but I know taking risks pays off. This is the fork in the road, and I need to take the challenging road sprinkled with goodness and sprinkles. I thought this was a great question and story, because I think many of us feel like we're supposed to do these certain things and that we have to exercise. And the truth about exercise is that it's only beneficial when it is meeting you where you're at, where it's okay with what your doctor says and how your body feels. One thing that's taken me I'll make this personal, because one thing that's taken me a really long time as a woman in Southern California, it's taken me a long time to realize that my body lets me know. Like, my body tells me when it's sore and when it's tired and when it's hungry and when it's not, and when it needs to make brownies and have a little piece of it because chocolate just sounds so damn good. And I know that I say this and it's like everybody always says that, but it's taken me a lot of work and a lot of mindfulness and a lot of like inside stuff, because we often feel like this person said, like, well, I need to be one of those people. I need to wear lycra. I need to work out. I need to talk about chia seeds. I need to juice. I need to do all this stuff. That's not where health comes from, because you are different than me. And my body is going to be different than yours, and how you feel day to day and how I feel day to day, there's such a variance. And so I just encourage you, instead of paying attention to all that noise, because there's a lot of it, shut it out and pay attention to your own personal noise. What's your body telling you? What is it that you crave? What is it that feels good? What is it you want to do? Listen to that, because that will never lead you astray. And maybe this is a time, because you said you're at this crossroads, where the intuitive eating workbook is a great step, because I haven't talked about it in a long time, but that book is bomb. It's so good. It's so helpful, especially when you're at this point where you want food to just be. You want to eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, eat the things that sound good and not the things that don't, and be okay with it. And so maybe that's something you pick up, but we need to first, before we try to branch out and do things, we need to tap in. I want you to listen to yourself. I want you to sit today for like 5 minutes, quiet with your eyes closed. Don't let anybody bother you. I don't want no music. And I want you just to consider how you feel, how you're doing, because all of your actions and all of your decisions should come out of that place. I hope that helps. It's hard work, but trust me, it's so worth it. And question number 2 is, hey Katie, I watched your videos and learned many helpful things. Hurry! I was wondering if you could talk about alexithymia. I heard that those suffering with alexithymia have difficulty recognizing and understanding the emotions of others. However, I've also heard that someone with alexithymia can be empathetic. How is that possible? Now, because I haven't talked about this term, I want to define it first for you so that we're all on the same page and we all understand what it means. And so the clinical term for this experience is alexithymia, and I may be butchering it. I'm not completely sure. And it's defined as the inability to recognize emotions and their subtleties and textures. Alexithymia throws a monkey wrench into a person's ability to know their own self-experience or understand what others feel and think. Someone with alexithymia can struggle to express their feelings. I'm going to read some of the symptoms. They can have limited or rigid imagination. They can have difficulty recognizing facial cues in others, and limited understanding of what causes feelings. I think it's just important for us all to be on the same page and know what I mean when I'm talking about alexithymia. And so back to the original question, they're asking, like, how can someone with this also be empathetic and like understand other people? And the truth about it is that even if we struggle to understand, the little details of how someone expresses themselves and what like facial expressions mean, happy, sad, excited, whatever, that doesn't mean that we can't learn. And I think maybe that's what someone meant when they said that they can be empathic badasses just like us, because they've learned to. In the same way that those on the spectrum can learn how to socially engage, even though it's a lot of work, we can still learn. Don't ever count people out just because they have something that's a little bit more difficult. They can still do it. It just means it's going to take a little bit more work. And so I think with regard to that, that would probably be what they would mean. But if someone with alexithymia never tried to understand or never sought out tools and techniques and ways to better engage with people, I don't believe that they could be empathetic to others, because frankly, they wouldn't even know how to do that because they don't fully understand what they're feeling or what they're expressing. They would have to, they're kind of working with nothing. So I hope that kind of makes sense. That was a really interesting question, and I love it when you guys teach me new terms and new things so that I learn more too. Now, question number 3 is, Katie, my therapist mentioned transgenerational trauma, and I'm not really sure what that means. This is a great question. I may have to do a whole video about this because it's something that I learned a lot in school, and while I'm not a trauma specialist, it's something I'm acutely aware of. So thanks for asking this, and it's really important that we all understand it. So transgenerational trauma is really when we pass down trauma generation to generation. And I know you're thinking, Katie, how does that even happen? Because if I don't fear for my life, then it's not a trauma. You taught me that, PTSD, hello. But we can learn behaviors and communication strategies and overall just how we are as a person from people in our lives, right? Our parents teach us how to engage with others, how to play well, how to communicate well, how to express ourselves. We learn all of that from our family. Now, if our family is like come out of genocide and is now in a free nation, however, they all grew up in this very scary and terrifying place, they're still going to act out of that and pass that on to us. And I'll give you a really, my only personal example that I have is when I used to go out to dinner with my great grandma, because she didn't pass away. I was lucky. She lived to 92. So she didn't pass away until I was 11 or 12 years old. She would steal the salt and pepper shakers. She would also always keep her cloth napkin and wrap any roll or bit of food that people left into it and take it in her purse. Kind of weird / gross / you're stealing. What? But she grew up in the Depression. And during the Great Depression, people didn't have much. And so she was like a hoarder of food and condiments. And it was funny because as a kid, I'd be like, Mom, what's grandma doing? That's really weird. But that is an example. If all of my family members did that, and that's how I grew up, that's what I would do. And so I'm just giving you that example because it's a little more lighthearted and easier to maybe understand, because transgenerational trauma is when our family's been traumatized and all the behaviors that they're doing are passed down to us. Therefore, we may not sleep well because no one sleeps well. We may be hypervigilant because that's how our parents respond to things like that. And all of our siblings act a certain way. So without even knowing it, we can be raised in an environment that is all based on trauma, and it's coming out of that PTSD response. And the 4th and final question for this video is, Katie, I've seen a therapist off and on for 2 years. She just referred me to an eating disorder specialist, which is scary, but I do ultimately feel hopeful. I've only had 2 sessions with the new therapist, and I have a couple of questions for you in the interim while she and I get to know each other. Number 1, I really enjoy reading and watching about eating disorders, and I know some things like your channel and most nonfiction aimed at eating disorder sufferers has really helped me get some insight. But do you have any thoughts on reading memoirs of people with eating disorders or fictional books and movies about eating disorders? Is that a bad thing to spend a lot of my time doing? I thought this was a great question, and it's something that we definitely have to figure out what's good for us personally, because I think memoirs can be super powerful. If you remember, I did that video with Lindsay Sterling, and she talked about Life Without Ed, how powerful of a book that was for her, and that was someone else's memoir, that was someone else's story, but it helped Lindsay get better, and it helped her feel heard and understood. And so I do think that there is value to watching videos about it, reading about it, watching movies about it. However, there is this balance, right, between that being helpful and that being part of our recovery process and something that we do, and us only engaging in that kind of material. I find some of my patients will get so caught up in the eating disorder being who they are and all that they're about, that that's all they read, all they watch, and that is something I would caution you against. So definitely utilize those things as tools to help you feel better heard and understood and just help you in recovery. But notice if it's the only thing you're reading and watching and doing, because that's when I would kind of cut back and try to integrate other stuff into your reading and watching time. I hope you found those answers helpful. Thank you so very much for your support each and every month. You're the reason that I'm still able to create videos on YouTube and do all the things I do. I can't thank you enough, but there are 3 more questions coming at you in the next video, so I'll see you over there. Bye.